given the fact that we're talking about a lot of space, I mean, if you're talking about, just use the number 40% in San Diego, you're talking about maybe over 4 to 5 million square feet of vacant space in downtown San Diego. And it's a 14 million square foot downtown. I mean, if you go to LA or certainly San Francisco or Manhattan or almost anywhere, the numbers are, the real numbers are much bigger. And of course, New York's numbers alone are just huge. So I guess the question is, we're talking about the wipeout of neighborhoods, and it can't really be done as one-offs. What I raised to her was maybe what we really need to be thinking about is government involvement, and maybe even the reimagination of redevelopment agencies, which we sort of went away from, and certainly in California a few years ago, given budget constraints in the last administration. Maybe what we really need is not just asset owners and their lenders who've gotten the keys back to these buildings to be looking at these spaces, but we need government back in as well to provide a backbone to all this.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we've been very active and proactive in pushing that as well. Calgary was the first big city that we worked with, and they looked at all of their downtown and they said, we want to get rid of half of the office vacancy.
Yeah.
And they said that because they'd lost about $17 billion of taxable real estate. So they said, we're going to do that, and we're going to figure out what the payback is if we incentivize people to redevelop these sites. So we worked with them to figure out how many buildings could just work, in the market, how many conversions could work. And that wasn't enough. And they then put in their incentives, which is $75 a square foot that they will give developers to do the projects.
Are they actually giving them money?
Yeah. So on completion of the project. Yeah. No tax abatement, just cash on completion. And it's been incredibly successful because it's simple to understand and the numbers are big enough to make a difference. But the city was on board with it because they figured out their payback from their $200 million investment. And they that's great, 5-year payback or less. We're, very happy. That now, and we kind of encourage them to do it by neighborhood. So you get 3 or 4 conversions happening together and so on. But they've now got 17 approved projects in a city that's only got, around 100 office towers. It's one of the only cities now in North America that actually had a declining vacancy rate in the last quarter, went down about 6%. And that is 100% because they were taking buildings out of the market to do these conversions. So they got 5 finished, 5 more in construction, and 7 more approved and ready to go. So very, very effective and very quick turnaround on it.
I know the mayor of Calgary, when she comes down to San Diego to visit occasionally. Next time she comes, I'm going to hit her up on that program and see. The problem, of course, in California is the state has depending on whose interpretation of the budget you look at, as a $30 to $60 billion deficit. So I'm not sure money out of the pocket is.
Well, Steven's very modest. He was personally invited to the White House on several occasions to help craft and advise on the federal financial involvement. I don't know, Steven, if you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing with HUD and the Department of Energy.
You should.
A big part of that is, as part of the real estate roundtable group that went to the meet the White House policy team a few months ago, and the big outcome from that was really, how do you combine existing tax incentive programs like historic tax credits and so on? How do you make them understandable to people who've never had to use them before? Because you can get really lost in the federal programs. And then what can you use from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act and other programs to get money out and get money flowing? So what they're looking at now through Department of Transportation or for Department of Energy is essentially lending for construction at Treasury rate plus a tiny markup. And that means you can get construction lending at right now at like 4.1, 4.2%, something like that, versus typical construction loans, which we're hearing anywhere between 8 and 12%. So that should, I think, really help actually get money out into the market and get some of these projects to happen. And importantly, get them to happen without reducing the quality, because we've seen that a lot. Construction costs and values go up, you value engineer the project, and it ends up worse for it. With the low rate loan low rate loan program, all you're losing, or the only money you're saving, is on the loan value, right? So that in effect is wasted money. It's just money that disappears into the ether to pay interest costs. So not having to do that's got a huge positive impact.